of New Zealand.
Order. We come to the 5-minute calls. Jacinda Ardern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to come back to a member of this House who has a true focus on women and on children and on families, and I want to pay tribute to Sue Moroney, because this would be, Mr. Speaker, one of the first occasions I've stood up in this House and felt truly proud to speak to a bill and a policy that I think will contribute to both children and the betterment of their families. And I thank Sue for being the champion of that. I think she demonstrates her and Labour's belief and focus on children. And our vision is that New Zealand be the best place in the world for children to grow up, but also the best place in the world to be a child, and that is key to our vision. And what did we hear from that side of the House? From the Minister of Women's Affairs. Her vision during Sue Moroney's speech amounted to her yelling across the House that, "Will you mine?" That was the interjection we heard from the Minister of Women's Affairs. Will you mine? The Minister of Women's Affairs is essentially asking us the question, coal or children? Well, I have an answer for that, Minister, and my answer is this. Stop subsidising heavy polluters and we can back kids. Build one less road of national significance that we don't need and we can help kids and their family. This government has proven that their priority is not children. They have proven it time and time again. So here the Minister of Women's Affairs stand up and justify that government's position that they will not invest in children was absolutely appalling. It was shallow, to say the least. Mr. Speaker, according to the OECD, New Zealand spends roughly 50% of the OECD average on kids, and primarily that's because of the money that goes unspent on the early years. Changing our paid parental leave would go a long way to addressing that deficit. But it's not just about investing in paid parental leave because that's what families have told us they want. It's also about the evidence. And Sue spoke strongly to that evidence, but I just want to reiterate that. 6 months is known to be the most crucial period of a child's development that we could possibly invest in. And Tohinane points out, well, you don't say. Do something about it is what I say to the government. You've got the evidence. Listen to your own chief science advisor and do something about it. The WHO has told us that not only because of the necessity to try and encourage and assist women to breastfeed, but it's also about attachment. And we're seeing more and more that attachment disorder is something that we as taxpayers are picking up later on in service provision. We've heard that that conduct disorder in itself costs up to $1 million across the course of a child's life. Those 6 months are crucial. This policy is about investing to save. So you would have thought that we would have heard something about it in the Minister of Social Development's policies on the Green Paper around vulnerable children. Well, one thing that you don't hear the Minister talk about is the fact that actually, in reality, all children are by default vulnerable, and particularly in their very, very early stages, and that some universal policies pay extraordinary dividends, and paid parental leave is in that boat. So is early childhood education, which the Minister of Women's Affairs feels content to talk about the importance of that, even though that government cut early childhood education spending blatantly, and now they refuse to budge on this. They tell me that is investment in children in their critical years. Well, all of the evidence sits counter to that, Mr. Speaker. John Key himself has acknowledged that we are no longer giving families the choices about caring for their own children. We are in a race to the bottom in New Zealand for our families. We have a chance to turn that around. In fact, the evidence that's come out of the Growing Up in New Zealand survey demonstrates that 87.4% of women took paid parental leave when they had their newborn. After that, They then started taking other mixtures of leave, unpaid leave, holiday leave, sick leave, because it was so important to them that they be able to stay at home with their child in those early months. Mr. Speaker, there is a better way. Sue Moroney and Labor have presented that to the House today. The fact that that government will not support it shows their vision for children and shows that Labor will put children at the heart of its policy.
Louise Hubston.
Tēnā koe e te kai whakawā.